Hey everybody, it's GobletX, and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we're going to be playing another quick draft of Wilds of Eldraine. Without further ado, let's slam dunk our Pack 1 Pick 1 bomb rare. That is Lord Skitter the Sewer King. This is an army in a can, spitting out a rat token every single turn, while being a perfectly solidly statted 3-mana 3/3. It's also a little bit of graveyard interaction, where you can exile your opponent's stuff from their grave, just in case they have any recursion. So it just does a lot of stuff for a really cheap mana cost. Lord Skitter is spectacular. Definitely the pick here. Lord Skitter's Butcher is also quite nice. If our rare sucked, that would probably be the pick. And then we've got some solid commons, and Tanglespan Lookout's a fun build around as well. But easy Lord Skitter to start things off. For Pack 1 Pick 2 now, we don't see any follow-ups in black, the only black spell being Wicked Visitor, which is definitely not Pick 2 worthy. It's a pretty filler common to take later during the draft. We've got a Hamlet Glutton, which is green's best common in my opinion, as a huge way to stabilize late in the game in your grindier decks. Does work really well with little rat tokens to bargain away, the bargain ability making you want to sacrifice an artifact, enchantment, or token to reduce the cost of this Glutton. And with rat tokens, we have really expendable tokens to sacrifice. So I do think Hamlet Glutton's a reasonable pick, but if we take a green spell, I'd probably rather just take the Stormkeld Vanguard anyway. Nice main deckable artifact enchantment removal that is just slapped onto a really nice finisher of the 6-mana 6/7 that's super hard to block. Outside of the green cards in this pack, there is Hopeful Vigil for one of white's best commons, spitting out 2 permanents off of 1 card, spitting out great bargain fodder by giving us an enchantment and a token we could sack later. I think the Vigil plays really nice, but I think I will go for the green card here. Let's go for the Stormkeld Vanguard. Super nice finisher. Pick number 3 now. Again, there's nothing in black, just a Warehouse Tabby, which is pretty filler. We've got some decent uncommons, but they're both kind of multicolored cards. Frolicking Familiar being great when you're in blue and red, and the Picnic Ruiner being great when you're in red and green. So they're a little restrictive mana-wise. So I don't think I take any of those to follow up a black and a green spell starting off this draft. We'd rather just take the excellent removal spell of Cooped Up at common, or Hollow Scavenger to go 1 card deeper into black. This is a card I like quite a bit as well, spitting out a food token and that wolf to start attacking and blocking with. The food token, of course, hitting bargain synergies. There's also cards that specifically care about food, and if you just leave that food token on board for the Hollow Scavenger's ability, then you're always threatening to attack or block with this thing as a 5/4, which makes it really hard for your opponent to find good blocks for it or good attacks into it. So I actually like Hollow Scavenger quite a bit, to the point where, since I do have 1 green card and 0 white so far, I'm perfectly happy taking Scavenger over Cooped Up. Now in a vacuum I would take the Cooped Up first, but really it doesn't take much to tilt it in Hollow Scavenger's direction. A single green card will do it for me because I really like Hollow Scavenger. For pick 4 now, we've got a great follow-up towards pushing into black-green food. That is the Feed the Cauldron. This is fine, cheap removal, but if you cast it during your turn, you also get a food token, which can be really nice when you have cards that want to bargain some tokens away, or cards that want food on the board specifically, like the Hollow Scavenger. So I think Feed the Cauldron's super reasonable here. We could also take like a little red aggro card like Harried Spearguard, but there's not much else in this pack that's particularly exciting. Let's grab a Feed the Cauldron here. Pick number 5, we get Minstrosity, which is a very important 2-drop to these black-green decks, because there just aren't too many high-quality 2-mana plays, but you do want to have like 5+ 2-mana spells in basically any deck you're drafting in this format, so it's really important to pick up the solid ones when you can, and Minstrosity is definitely a solid one. 2-mana 3/1 that trades off and leaves behind a food token that you can use for all your food and bargain synergies. So I love me a Minstrosity. Rat Out also plays really well. Belligerence, probably the strongest card in the pack. I mean, it's not astronomically stronger than just like a Minstrosity, but it is pretty good in red. And outside of that, there's like some fixing with Scarecrow Guide or some card draw with Collector's Vault. I think it's pretty easily Minstrosity for me. Pick number 6. Not a whole lot going on in this pack. There is the food build around the Knight of the Sweet's Revenge. Turns all of your food tokens into mana rocks for later in the game, which is really cute. It also comes with a food token. Then it can be a finisher if you sacrifice it for 7 mana. I have never been overly impressed by this card. I think I've been beaten by it like 1 time where it really popped off. but I always hear like good things about it from a lot of the high level drafters that I listen to in their podcasts and stuff, like Lords of Limited, stuff like that. I just have never seen it do anything much in action. But this might be the deck where we actually try it out ourselves with Minstrosity, Feed the Cauldron, and Hollow Scavenger already for 3 food providers. I mean, really, the best card we're missing out on here is Baronauti, and that's really only good if you have other fairies in the deck. So in a black-green deck, we would need multiple copies of Baronauti, as well as some uncommons, because I think the Baronauti is the only common fairy that's particularly good in black. If we were blue-black, then we could pick up more fairies at any rarity, but having only access to black and green, we would have to get lucky with some solid uncommon fairies to get this going consistently, so I guess I'll take the Knight of the Sweet's Revenge. I'll speculate on that over some really filler, really dorky creatures, but I wouldn't be surprised if it just doesn't make the cut in the end. Pick 7, I will happily take a Sweet Tooth Witch, 3 mana 3/2 that comes with a food token. It's just 2 permanents off the 1 card. 1 is good bargain fodder, or it is that food token for your food synergies. And I think we're pretty committed at this point to green-black, as we've taken every single card in the color pair, so we could take a Genealogist. I actually think it might be pretty difficult to fit this in the deck right now, though, because it's significantly worse than every other 3-drop in the deck, and I don't have infinite space for 3-mana plays, so I'd maybe just rather take a Gingerbrute. It's a little food golem here that synergizes with any of our food cards in general. Could take a Prophetic Prism here, because green-black is a grindy enough, mid-rangey enough archetype that you do have time to splash in some off-color adventures and stuff late in the game, and preferably we can find some better finishers than Scream Puff to fill out the deck, so I'll speculate on a Prophetic Prism in case we find some really nice off-color stuff we want to splash. Now we get a second Prophetic Prism, which will make the splashing even more consistent. And now we fill in the deck with some random filler until we get enough cards to cut these Wicked Visitors and Commune with Natures and stuff. Alright, pack 2, pick number 1. Not great for green-black. I guess I could like try to splash in a Hatching Plans for the card draw if we play enough bargain spells, but that's definitely on the borderline of something you'd want to splash. On color, we only have a Baronauti, a Feed the Cauldron, and a Curse of the Werefox, and I do think the Feed the Cauldron and the Curse of the Werefox pretty fine for this kind of deck, but not really what you want to be taking pick number 1, so this will be a bit of a disappointing pick for us, but I suppose I'll just go with another Feed the Cauldron here. For pack 2, pick number 2. Wow, these are some big misses, these couple packs here. Just nothing good was opened up in our colors. The only thing taken out of this pack was the rare, and none of these commons or uncommons are really what you want to be taking at this point. Like, they're all filler playables for the most part, but they're the kind of filler playables you usually get pick 10 and onward, outside of like Curse of the Werefox, which I guess is the pick here. It's slightly above that level, but it's certainly not excellent removal, since you do have to have a decently big creature on board for it to work in the first place. It is what it is. We'll take the Curse of the Werefox here. The red spells in this pack, infinitely better than everything else. The Witchstalker Frenzy and Torch the Tower, so a little sad to see that. Pick number 3. This pack's fine. Again, probably the best spells are the red spells, but not by a whole ton here. Tempting Apple's really good as a finisher in a more aggressive deck. It might be okay in this deck too, since it is a food for food synergies. And it is still kind of a finisher. It's between the Tempting Apple and like a Conceited Witch here, maybe a Gingerbrute, but Gingerbrute is really only exciting when you have young hero rolls to keep putting +1/+1 counters onto it. That's not something that green-black can do. I would say Gingerbrute is really just a filler inclusion for a green-black food deck, just because it does happen to be a food. It's never super exciting or a super early pick like a pick 3 kind of card. So, not actually the most excited about that. Yeah, it's Tempting Apple versus Conceited Witch. Primarily what's going on here. I'll go ahead and take the Tempting Apple. I think that's a better finisher than Conceited Witch is, a 3-drop. Pick number 4. It's again all pretty filler. Grab a Scream Puff here. Now that we have double Feed the Cauldron and a Curse of the Werefox, we don't need a second curse. I don't think we're going to run more than like 4 or 5 removal spells, and if we hit any of these solid uncommon removal spells, they're all better than Curse of the Werefoxes and Feed the Cauldrons, so we're going to end up cutting 1 or 2 of these in the end. But we might not cut the Scream Puff if we don't find finishers. Pack 2, pick 5 is a huge payoff for us. We get the Greta Sweet Tooth Scourge, the signpost uncommon for our archetype. She's a 3-mana 3/3 that enters the battlefield with a food token, and we can sack any food tokens to get +1/+1 counters on our creatures or draw cards and lose life. Excellent, excellent flexible card. Pick number 6 now gives us some garbage. Best card in the pack is Balluna's Gatekeeper, followed by Kellen's Light Blades, and then everything else kind of sucks. So we'll take the on-color little 1/1, I guess. Don't really want to play a Stingblade Assassin. Although I don't want to play the 1/1 either. Alright, here's another random food, the 3 bowls of porridge. There's also a second hatching plans. Just splash in a couple hatching plans. We don't even have the bargain for it, though. I have 0 bargain spells right now, so 3 bowls of porridge it is. Pretty filler, pretty dirtily for the mana that you're putting into it. But it does some stuff, and it is a food, which is cute. Take a Verdant Outrider here over the card draw spell of the Rowan's Grim Search. These are both filler for sure. I was going to say fine, but they're a little below that. I guess I'll take the Grim Search over the Outrider. Could be good if we end up with like some Mega Bombs we really want to dig for. Pick 9, get the Barrow Naughty. Looks like the bots just don't take hatching plans at all. If you want to be a blue-based hatching plans deck, you can draft an excellent blue bargain deck in these quick draft pods, apparently. At least the one that I'm in. And put that in the deck for now. Get to our 23 playables. Take a Crystal Grotto to go alongside our double Prophetic Prism. And let's see what we open up in the final pack. Alright. This is still pretty disappointing. Not that this is like an absolutely horrific pack to open up, because we can take a Sweet Tooth Witch here, which hits our synergies pretty well. But it is really disappointing looking at our pack 2 that we opened and our pack 3 that we opened when we were drafting green-black food. When you stack this as our pack 3 pick 1 and our pack 2 pick 1 also being a pretty dirtly card, that's where it looks extra disappointing. So that is unfortunate. Nothing crazy on color. Best cards definitely being red again. Scalding Viper, Ratcatcher Trainee. Hopeful Vigilant Wipe being solid. But Sweet Tooth Witch it is. Pack 3 pick number 2, we actually get some solid stuff here. I think the Twisted Sewer Witch could be pretty solid if we have a couple rat tokens sitting around, which we don't a lot of the time, but whenever we hit a Lord Skitter into Twisted Sewer Witch could be insane. And it's not like there's anything really competing with the Sewer Witch, the main card being Conceited Witch, I guess. So let's take Twisted Sewer Witch. Pack 3, pick 3 is again pretty dirtily. I don't think I play any of these on-color cards. At this rate, we don't need a Return from the Wilds at all. And that's the best on-color card. I guess I just hold down that Alt key and rare draft something for the collection, but looks like I have completed Wilds of Eldraine, so I'll just hate draft a Princess Takes Flight. Take that, bot! You don't get to play that removal spell. Pack 3, pick 4, we get a second Greta, Sweet Tooth Scourge. That's really nice. If we're really lucky, maybe we can get a Hollow Scavenger to come back. That could be excellent. Pack 3, pick 5, another Sweet Tooth Witch here, and this is what I was saying with taking that Minstrosity really highly. When it comes to premium 3-mana spells, or just solid 3-mana spells, there are so many in the green-black archetypes, but there's so few at 2 mana. Like, we're really loading up at 3. Our mana curve is going to be wild. Pack 3, pick 6, grab a rat out for a 1-drop on curve, gives us another rat to go with the Sewer Witch, so basically like a 1-mana 1/1 flash. You can cast it at instant speed, and maybe it gets to kill something with that -1/-1. So it does kind of add to the creature count when we care about rats a little bit. Filler 2-drop creature it is. Take a Scarecrow Guide here. I would really prefer to cut that if we don't end up playing an off-color adventure or something like that. Could take another Tempting Apple here, I guess. Pretty cute. Brave the Wilds also, fine. Take another apple. Pick number 9, we did get the Voracious Vermin to come back, which is really nice with the Sewer Witch. Not that we have a lot of room for 3-drop creatures, but still think that's definitely better than the Verdant Outrider, at least. Alright, I'm not going to play a Bestial Bloodline. I'm not going to play a Bestial Bloodline or a Sugar Rush, but everything's common out of this pack, so we'll just draft a common. And it's going to be some off-color stuff. I guess Witch Stalker is technically castable, but we have like no creatures with power 4 or greater. We've got 2 or 3 of them maybe. 1 Scream Puff, 1 Vanguard. That's kind of it. Alright. We gotta cut 8 cards out of this deck. Sky Beast Tracker is one of the most dirtily cards in the deck. How much food did we get for the Night of the Sweet's Revenge? Because maybe that is our win con at this point, because we didn't get a lot of great late game stuff. Maybe we just jam out random creatures, have a bunch of food, and try to do that gigantic explosion from the Night of the Sweet's Revenge. Yeah, well, I guess. I feel like our deck is dirtily enough to try out the Night of the Sweet's Revenge thing here. Could be pretty fun. Rat Out adds to the creature count, which is sitting at 20 when you count Rat Out. Mire's real bad. Witch Stalker is not going to be able to attack often. The Wicked Visitors are going to do basically literally nothing. We have like 1 or 2 rolls. There's still 2 mana 2/2s at least. The Barrow Naughty, we've got no other fairies, so it's just the 1/3. But 2 mana 1/3 flyer is not completely unplayable. God, our mana curve is so awkward. If I cut more 2-drops, but I want to cut more 2-drops because they're just the weakest cards in the deck. 17 creatures now. Getting closer to the normal count. 3 Bowls of Porridge is probably too dirtily. 3 more cuts to go. Could cut a Bowls of Porridge, cut a Sweet Tooth Witch, cut a Scarecrow Guide. Still not a ton of 1 and 2 mana value creatures, but not a horrible count. Average mana cost 3 makes sense when everything in the deck costs 3 mana. That is what I would imagine would be the average. Oh. I don't think we cut a land here. It's not like I have a ton of high mana value spells, but I have a lot of abilities I might be dumping mana into between Greta, Hollow Scavenger, Sweet Tooth Witch, Tempting Apple, Night of the Sweet's Revenge. Food tokens in general. Eating food tokens later in the game is going to tax some of our mana. I think I went 17 lands in this deck. I do think we have enough enter the battlefield effects that Not Dead After All could be pretty good. It's basically good on every 3 mana play that we have. Every 3 mana creature is pretty good when we reanimate it with a Wicked Rule on it. The Witch coming with another food, the Vermin with a rat, the Greta with another food. So yeah, I guess I will just cut 1 Sweet Tooth Witch and call it a deck here. Alright, here's a look at our final deck list for today. We're on a black-green food deck with a lot of food synergies. We're going really deep on that with my first Night of the Sweet's Revenge that I'm actually going to run in the main deck. So we have a bunch of cards like Sweet Tooth Witches, Hollow Scavengers, Gretas, Feed the Cauldrons, Ariette's Tempting Apples, Night of the Sweet's Revenge, and Gingerroot that either create a food token or are a food themselves. So with all those cards, we can be tapping for a bunch of mana off of the Night of the Sweet's Revenge to dump our hand out super, super quick, but we can also get to that 7 mana activated ability a little early and hopefully just absolutely demolish our opponent with a bunch of extra power and toughness. So that's the fun build around. The rest of the deck is your pretty standard green-black food stuff with the Signpost uncommon of Greta, letting us use all of our food tokens to draw cards and lose life to stay ahead in card advantage throughout the game. We've got the basic removal. We didn't get any of the premium stuff, just a couple Feed the Cauldrons and a Curse the Werefox, a Rat out for small cards, and when it comes to individual bombs like Sweet Rares or anything like that, we've got one card, and that is our Pack 1 Pick 1 Lord Skitter Sewer King. This is an army in a can spitting out a rat token every single turn. That should be pretty solid. So relatively basic black-green food stuff here, but we're trying to go deep with Night of the Sweet's Revenge, and we'll see how it plays out for us as we head into the gameplay. Here we are for game 1. Probably have to mulligan this. It needs a forest pretty bad. If I hit any land, I'm casting 2 spells throughout the game. But I need a forest specifically, or more than half of the spells in the hand are completely cut off. The black spells don't give me any card draw or anything to help find the green sources. Yeah, I think this is a mulligan. This is even worse. So a mull to 5 to start off the draft. It is. Keep the 2-lander here with Minstrosity being the only proactive play anyway. Yep. Alright. It's not looking great, statistically speaking. Mulliganing twice does lower your win rate quite a bit, but we'll see if we can get some really, really solid draws, and hopefully our opponent gets some pretty weak draws for us to keep up here. Send in the Minstrosity, and I'm very happy with how I played out this turn, because I'm going to kill that Obira and get a food token. Honestly, I would not hate if they traded there. So maybe I should have waited on the Feed the Cauldron, but I feel like this is a valuable enough card that we were going to end up killing it if they didn't trade anyway. Alright, Night of the Sweet's Revenge and Ginger Brute in the same turn here. Plus I can give the Ginger Brute unblockable. But now I'm already out of cards. Which is the awkward part. And I don't want to trade my 3-1 into a 1-1. So we're completely out of gas. We need to draw into something. Basically every turn from now on. We do have some card draw on this deck. If we can find our Gretas, they will be incredibly helpful. An Aquatic Alchemist. It's a 1-3 that buffs itself when they cast instants and sorceries. And another return from the Wilds. They are ramping into some big potential spells. Another land for us here. Can sack this to give +3/+3 for the turn. Got enough mana to do that without tapping any of my creatures. Threatens 10 damage, but they just double chump easily, and then I'm out of gas completely. Just keep poking for 1 with the Ginger Root, I guess. It is what it is. There's their own Greta, which is what we're looking for here. We're already naturally down 3 cards because we're on the play, so we don't draw on the first turn, and we mulligan twice to be down 2 cards from there. And now we're down even more with Greta drawing them 2 more cards off of the 2 food tokens. Yeah, I mean, the only way I think this game goes any better for us is if we just keep the really sketchy 7-card hand. The 6-card hand was really bad. I don't think we could justify keeping that one. But the 7-card hand, I think, was more debatable on the mulligan there, because at least any land in the deck can cast 2 of those spells that we had. And obviously, if we hit the forest with that 7-card hand, it is pretty good, casting a Greta. So, guess we just needed to take that gamble instead of the gamble that we took in hindsight. But I don't know how the statistics and odds line up to which is the better play, to mulligan or not mulligan. when you don't have the information of how you're going to draw on your mold of 6. I mean, Lord Skitter's a strong card, but it doesn't actually do very much for us here. We're kind of just getting locked out of the game with this Greta. I mean, I guess actually if they don't have removal, Lord Skitter can be our win condition, because just getting a rat every turn does mean eventually I'll have a big enough board state to buff everybody with Knight of the Sweet's Revenge and just kill my opponent. So it really depends if they have the removal immediately. We'll see after they untap. And they can draw 2 extra cards to dig for it off the Greta. But they're just going to draw 1 for now. But yeah, if Lord Skitter sticks around, that's 1 more creature every turn, even if it is a 1/1 that can't block. That's still pretty good with a Knight of the Sweet's Revenge on board. Well, there is the removal. No responses here, right? We have no sack effects or anything interesting on board, so that just resolves. We've got a food token, so they're essentially at 15. We have 3 food over here, so Knight of the Sweet's Revenge is still just +3/+3 to everybody. Only 1 creature's gonna get in for like 4 damage. Forgot to attack with Gingerbrute. Maybe for like 2 turns now. I don't know when that started happening. I just started thinking about other stuff. So we've missed a couple points of damage. That could end up mattering. I think I only missed 1 attack with Gingerbrute. I think I just got too excited about Lord Skitter. Forgot what I was doing outside of that. But maybe it was like 2 points of damage by now. It's kind of an excruciating matchup to have a weak hand in, because we're dying slowly. But we are definitely dying. Show me that combat trick. No combat trick? We get to actually kill Greta? Maybe it's a graveyard recursion or something? Bring Greta back to hand to recast? The 4-mana 3/3 horse thing? Yep. Fair enough. Greta's back. Opponent's at 11. They don't have the mana to eat the food right now. So they're genuinely at 11. I can sacrifice the Knight of the Sweet's Revenge for +4/+4 now. I mean, like, send a message at this point, right? If nothing else. None of our blocks are going to be any good. At least this way we force a chump or 2. Or we are hitting for lethal. Probably better to actually kill some things by attacking in than it is to just chump a bunch of things. Especially when our rat can't chump. Oh, I needed to do that in the other order. I was gonna also give Gingerbrute the haste. Or not the haste, the unblockability. But my food doesn't tap for mana when I don't have Knight of the Sweet's Revenge on board. So I needed to tap the food for mana there, too. Alright, they don't block Gingerbrute anyway, so this is probably the exact same blocks that would have happened even if I did tap for mana. I guess I could have tapped 3 of them for mana, so I could also eat a food here to be slightly safer from dying. But they need like a instant or sorcery to kill me. Oh my god, or the biggest bomb in the whole set. Rough triplets it is. That's 3 3/3s with trample, and when any of them die, they buff all of the other ones with their power and toughness. So if one dies, the others are 6/6 tramples. And then if one of those die, there's even more. Hold the phone. I'm 1 damage off? Oh. I'm 1 damage off. which means I'm literally 1 mana off. Because I can play this and throw 2 food tokens at them. Oh my god. And I can't survive. I can't survive 3 gruff triplets, can I? Oh, this sucks. Maybe I can get them to think I have like a death touch combat trick. No! Alright. God dang it. If they played anything like weaker than gruff triplets, I think the Sweet Tooth Witch off the top would actually just kill them here. But I don't think it gets through gruff triplets. Now I have to just hold my mana so I can eat some food to live another turn. Oh yeah, and they have a bunch of food tokens. That's right. They have 6 more life than it looks like anyway. Alright. We definitely didn't have lethal then. Forgot about their food tokens. They got off of recasting Greta. Alright, well, this is a pretty huge bummer of a way to start it off. Really rough mulligans, and then some huge stuff from our opponent with them getting their Greta to win the game card advantage-wise, and then also having a massive bomb. Hatching plans, cheerleading from the sideline. The classic hatching plans, no bargain. Rough draw for our opponent. But everything else about their draw is pretty great, so I don't think they can complain much. 7 life. They're at 11. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's no way, though. Because they can also triple buff this thing. These all have trample. Yeah, I have to eat some food, which means that I don't have enough food left to kill them. I eat 1 food and I'm at 10? I guess I just eat 2 food tokens here. Probably the play. Oh no, I still die because they triple buff if I just eat 2 food. So I have to eat 2 food and chump and then have nothing left. Yeah, this game's super over. I guess I could have thrown Gingerbrute under the bus so I still had Sweet Tooth Witch left, but I'd have a Sweet Tooth Witch left with literally 2 food tokens and nothing else against an opponent at 11, which there's nothing in my deck that wins after that. So sure, I died 1 turn quicker, but it's more of like putting me out of my misery than giving up on a 0.1% chance at victory. It's a 0.0% chance of victory there. We are 0-1 to start it off as we head into game 2. Here we are for game number 2. Actually get to keep the 7 card hand here, which is a pretty nice start in comparison. And it's really mana efficient if we hit a land. We go Bakery Raid into Wicked Visitor into Greta. It's pretty spicy. The Not Dead After All is really nice with the Greta. Also works well with Wicked Visitor by having a roll token on the board. Troublemaker Oof, just a 2-mana 2/2 for our opponent. We do hit a land, which is enough to get that turn 3 Greta or turn 3 Hollow Scavenger out. Send in the Oof. There's a lot of combat trick adventures in this format, and it's a really bad deal if your opponent uses a combat trick adventure to beat your creature, because then they haven't even spent the card. So if they have the 4-mana 4/3 that puts a monster roll on their token at instant speed, it would give it +1/+1 trample. They'd win the fight, trample over, and still have a 4/3 to cast next turn. So we don't want to run into that. Let's drop the Greta here. See if they have natural removal. And now they can't declare an attack if they're not... if they don't have a combat trick in hand, if they're just bluffing. Plus, they could have just been offering the trade, I guess. So, it doesn't necessarily mean that they were bluffing that they didn't attack into the Greta. But it does mean they probably didn't have a trick, because I think you would combat trick the Greta away if you could. So, what now? I've got a rat out if they try to do some nonsense, or a not dead after all if they do some nonsense that would kill Greta. Probably attack all, holding up not dead after all, or rat out, and then just hollow scavenger post-combat. Let's try the rat out. Didn't seem like they had a trick, or they would have attacked into the Greta while I was tapped out. And they do not have the trick, so we get to rat out their 2/2 and get a hollow scavenger on board, which is a really excellent turn. And they've got 5 mana but nothing to do here? Seems great to me. Probably even just keep the aggression on and spend a food for 2 more damage right now. Maybe better to spend the food for a +1/+1 counter though, since that's 1 extra damage this turn and 1 extra damage next turn. But I guess, I mean, getting my opponent down to 4, cashing in on 2 damage right now also seems pretty solid. There's a freeze in place to lock down the hollow scavenger. Scry 1 at the top, 1 at the bottom, and there's the concession from our opponent. We are now 1-1, balancing things out after our first loss as we head into game 3. Here we are now for game 3 with another pretty solid hand. No commentary on the first turn. I was wrapping up eating a little bit of chicken real quick. Well, let's just get in with this Ginger Brute. Honestly, the trade for the Snare Master Sprite's not horrible, so maybe I don't even need to spend the mana there. If I had anything to play turn 2, I probably would just run in the Ginger Brute. But since I have nothing else to do with my mana, let's make sure the Ginger Brute sticks around for some unblockable damage. But yeah, I mean, the trade would be fine. Twisted Sewer Witch coming up. Well, we've got no more rats for that. Blue-white deck. I think we slammed down a Greta. They could, like, coop her up, but that doesn't stop her abilities. They could Kellen's Light Blades to destroy an attacking or blocking creature, or deal 3 damage to an attacking or blocking creature, but if I keep her out of combat, that shouldn't kill her either. Make her a 1/1, but again, she retains her abilities. So that's pretty fine. I have the mana to play a Sweet Tooth Witch and buff somebody up with a food token. Would I prefer to leave the food around for other abilities? I think I probably would prefer to like draw cards off the food tokens than get a +1/+1 counter on this board. I don't think a +1/+1 counter is that great here, so I'm just going to get the unblockable attack in. Curiosity is a very high variance coin flippy kind of card, but it's really nice when your opponent doesn't have removal, and we don't have removal in hand. So the Snare Master with a Curiosity on it is likely to draw them multiple cards. That is not the most efficient way to clear out a Curiosity, but I guess I do that. I can spend my turn killing a Curiosity or playing a 5-drop, which is so much bigger. Guess I just let them have card advantage for days. We just swing in and get some damage on this board. They want to spend a removal spell on a 1/1. They are more than welcome. Okay, would I rather have a 3/4 and a 2/2 with a Wicked Roll on it? Or a 4/5? Go wide or go tall? I'll go wide first. There's a couple cards I could draw into that make more rats. If we draw into Lord Skitter, or if we draw into the Voracious Vermin, then Sewer Witch will be way better. And both of those cards are 3-mana spells, which means if I draw into one of them, I can play that and bear down the Curiosity. Alright, Curiosity drawn another card for our opponent. It has now been 1 mana to draw 2, which is excellent. There's a freeze in place on the Scream Puff. Playing against a lot of freeze in place today. So Scream Puff is out of the game for now, but it'll be back in business soon enough. I hit the 6th mana to just play a 6/7 that they can't block on board, but they can keep tapping it down with the Frost Guard, and if I just play it, I don't kill their Curiosity. Kinda want to blow up their Curiosity and maybe draw some cards off Greta here. I could also go full aggro and blow up their Curse Roll, I guess, so I can attack for 3 off Greta this turn. There's another possibility. I feel like stopping their card draw engine is kind of important, though. See if we draw anything good here. A second Greta? Okay. Okay. I guess I can trade the first Greta pretty aggressively now. Interesting. Yeah, clearing out a Frostbridge Guard doesn't feel terrible. If we get that going. Since we've got a backup Greta now. Alright, just hit for 3. They're down to 12. We're down to 13, but we have some ways to produce food in this deck, one of which is in hand and one's on board, if Scream Puff ever untaps, manages to connect. But by the time that Scream Puff untaps, it's probably just lethal if it hits my opponent in the face. Sounds like there's an audio error here where something sounds like it's on the stack at all times. Is that the Vanguard? Kind of looks like the Vanguard. This doesn't look like the normal on an adventure thing. Hilda! Oh, we're getting bombed out by Hilda for sure then. There's the Vermin to play pre-Sewer Witch. But they have Hilda with the Frostbridge Guard. So they just tap one of my creatures and make a 4/4 every single turn. Or put a +1/+1 counter on their entire board, or scry 2 and draw a card. Yikes. I guess I need to go wide then, and I go Vermin into Sewer Witch at this point. Because if I just go tall, they just keep tapping that with Frostbridge and getting more creatures off Hilda. Lack of food, draw a card. I could sack Gingerbrute to draw a card here. Just digging for my removal. Might do that. I mean, we could have gambled. I have like 1 removal spell in this deck that's big enough to kill Hilda right now. So I don't think the gamble was super worth it, but I could have gambled and tried to draw on my Curse of the Werefox. Alright, this Apprentice's Folly is not that bad for me because they don't have the mana to trigger Hilda this turn then. They just tap out to use this and stun one thing. No Hilda trigger for the turn. But that means next turn, in their main phase, they get to do it. At the beginning of their first main phase, they make another... Well, no, it has to be something that doesn't have the same name as a token they control, so they can't copy Sprite again, but they can copy Frostbridge Guard, I guess. And then they just need to bargain away the Apprentice's Folly before Chapter 3 to keep the targets. Oh no, it's got that new clause that they're putting on all of the clones where they can copy legendaries with this thing. Because the legendary subtype is meaningless nowadays. Alright. So they're gonna get a second Hilda next turn, then they tap something and get 2 Hilda triggers. Because they have the mana, 3 mana to tap and 2 mana to activate both Hildas. That is gonna suck a lot. Going digging with my Ginger Brute here. I don't think so. I think I'm still trying to chip in for whatever damage it can provide me. Unblockably. Alright, they kill 1 creature here for free, so they kill Greta, but then the rat gets in, or they trade into the rat. And this buffs Voracious Vermin, and then I can cast my second Greta without legend ruling myself. They're gonna kill the rat instead of the Greta? They are confident I have a second Greta in hand, I guess. And they are correct in that assumption. Alright. We are entering Nightmare territory where they have 2 Hildas on board, because the legend rule is meaningless. Alright, a little overexcited here. They're going to tap just right now. Oh no, this is lethal. Never mind. They can just double up the +1/+1 counter thing? Good lord, never mind. I was going to say, that might be a little overexcited because you can, like, tap during my turn to stop an attacker as well, but no, they just super mega kill me with double Hilda. Yep. That is generally what's going to happen without removal. Well, we tried. Got them to 7, I guess. Which is something. Okay, opponent. Congratulations. We are now 1-2 heading into game 4. Here we are now for game 4. We got a turn 1 Ginger Brute, turn 2 Wicked Visitor. It's mono black, which is pretty awkward, but there's no green spells in the hand, so that doesn't even matter till we draw into off-color spells. So I'm going to roll with it here. Minstrosity is an even better 2-drop, so we're pretty happy to draw into that. As long as we can still hit a land by turn 3. And we are on the draw here, so that should be statistically pretty probable. There it is. Another swamp. A little bit worse than drawing a forest here, but again, no green cards in hand yet anyway. Pretty happy to see our opponent spend just straight up removal on our 1-drop. The Discerning Financier is basically never going to trigger because we have to have more lands than them. So it's just a 2/3 basically, so I'm cool with the trade. And I'm also not really scared enough to just feed the Cauldron that Discerning Financier, because we're never going to have more lands than our opponent at this rate. Twin Veil Guide, also small enough to just attack into very easily. My issue with this card is it should be relatively easy for them to trigger the Celebration. They're going to start getting lifelink and outracing us with that. So that's pretty awkward. Send in the team. We're going to trade into the Financier with our Sweet Tooth Witch, but we can just play another now. Fingers crossed they don't play 2 non-land permanents here, because if they don't get the lifelink this turn, then they are going to have some issues. That's a permanent already. No second permanent, though, so they just get that food token life gain. Draws are starting to get pretty sketchy here. We're at the point of 50-50 lands and non-lands in the deck, with 14 left out of 28. Whisper's pretty annoying here, but I guess we discard Feed the Cauldron with nothing that it kills anyway. And then the weaker of the green spells. No attack there. Set on the team, hope they block Monstrosity here. No blocks also works with me. Another land for our opponent. We've got some opposite problems at each end of the table here. Pass the turn it is. Find a green spell. Again. Super awkward. They do block the Monstrosity. We go for the Rat Out. See what that last spell in their hand is, if anything. It is a Feed the Cauldron to save the Twin Veil Guide. Okay. They're down to 6. Basically any land just straight kills them. Literally any land straight kills them if they top decked an Evolving Wilds here. There it is, mono black game, but looks like it's not a problem. We're going to deal that 6 damage here, and we'll be 2-2 heading into game number 5. Here we are for game 5, a little bit of a slower hand, but we're on the play, so that does make up for it. And we've got all of our colors and all the mana we need to cast everything in the hand, which is excellent. It's a little awkward to see turn 2, but I guess it's better than hitting another 3-drop. It's our best 3-drop to play. They're all going to deal 3 damage by themselves, the Witch or the Vermin or the Scavenger. I guess I'll go for the Vermin. Go for the wider board states. It plays pretty well if we start trading some creatures off against the red-white deck. They're probably playing some cheap creatures to trade off with. I think the real choice there is between going wide with the Vermin or going tall with the Hollow Scavenger. I think Sweet Tooth Witch is the only objectively wrong creature to play there turn 3, since it has the best late game ability. Scavenger just threatening to be a 5/4 is kind of a big deal. So yeah, I could Curse of the Werefox, trade my Rat into the Protective Parents, and also buff the Vermin at the same time. And then I get to save Feed the Cauldron for something else. Or I can just Feed the Cauldron and hit with everybody. Or I could just trade Vermin into the Parents. It's better than trading one of the 3/2s in the Parents, and it still leaves behind a 1/1 for future damage. A lot of options here. Let's just send in the team, drop a Scavenger, I think. Save the removal for other stuff. Vermin trade for Parents. Or they can kill one of our 1/1s, in which case we'll buff the Vermin. But they are going to trade off. So here's the Hollow Scavenger. They're a red-white deck, so I'm not really concerned with them not having more mana value 3 or less cards. They will definitely eventually. Cut in on Scavenger. Well, at least they play that with no creatures on board, so they don't get the young hero roll. So that feels kind of nice. Now we get to slam down the Sweet Tooth Witch with the mana up to throw 1 food at them. Put them down to 14. Merry Bards. Can feed that to the Cauldron. And that plays around them having the +2/+2 combat trick, because that won't save it from a Feed the Cauldron. Oh, drawing a Twisted Sewer Witch makes things awkward. I think I still just Feed the Cauldron here, because the fact that they're waiting and thinking a lot with just 1 white mana means I'm pretty sure they have the +2/+2 trick, which doesn't save it from Feed the Cauldron, but would give them a really good block against me playing Sewer Witch and attacking, because they could sack that Young Hero roll to give it lifelink off of the bargain ability. Because that combat trick is 1 white mana to give +2/+2, and if you bargain by sacking a roll, it's +2/+2 flying and lifelink. So they would have had a really good block if I just tapped out for Sewer Witch, and they have that spell. Okay, so here's Bolt for the Witch. Let's go ahead and cash in another food then, before the Witch dies. There's 2 rats that can't block. I mean, I can't lethal here, but I can hit for a lot. And they're just going to concede on the spot, and they just don't have enough blockers to cast next turn, so that is going to be 3 and 2 heading into game number 6. Here we are now for game 6 with another pretty awkward hand. We need to hit any land, but any land lets us play Gingerbrute into Witch and Feed the Cauldron. It is slightly better than the very first hand that we drew today that we mulliganed, and panned out pretty poorly for us that we did. I guess I'll keep it this time around. It's like Arena giving us a second chance to keep it and just draw into a forest. But if we draw into any land, just like we did with our other hand that we kept that was like this, maybe we can win a mono black game here. We're only 1 card down if we just hit a bunch of swamps. Our opponent has taken 2 mulligans, but they are on the draw, which makes up for it a little bit. They are on a black deck. We did immediately hit the green source, because we never didn't have it. 2 mana from our opponent. Looks like nothing. Send in the Gingerbrute, drop down the Greta. And we keep hitting our lands, which means we might curve into the Scream Puff, which will be really nasty if we do. Turn 3 from our opponent. This is where green-black gets all of its cards. And there's the Conceited Witch. Can already attack into that pretty well without killing it, so let's just drop the Witch and attack into it. Our opponent is down to 13 now. We have 2 food tokens we can throw at them for 4 more damage as well. Looking pretty good. There's a Red Tooth Genealogist to buff up the Witch. But they attack. I was really not expecting an attack here. I think that's pretty good for me. They're at 13. Really love the idea of Vermin into the Sewer Witch here, so I'm going to do that, but I think it would also be reasonable to feed that Genealogist to the Cauldron to get in for maximum damage. Speaking of getting in for maximum damage, you know what we could do that's pretty nasty? Actually just cash in food tokens for extra damage at this point. We do this. Hit for 7, or all they do is chump now. They're down to 6. There's the Graceful Takedown to clear out the Greta, but that does buff the Voracious Vermin. Now they are going to hold off on blocks. There's a Knight of the Sweet's Revenge. Not the greatest right now. I mean, it's lethal on board if I just kill one of their blockers. No, it's 1 damage off. They block the 4/3 and take 5. There's a Utopia Sprawl. A little too late here, though. Stab Wound to kill the vermin, but that is going to be a victory for us. We are now 4-2. We have successfully made it into a positive win rate, which is nice because we started with our 2 losses nice and early in this draft, so have to hit a pretty solid win streak to get to a positive win rate, and we have so far, which is pretty nice, but we'll see how far we can take it as we head into round number 7. Here we are for game 7. Another keep, great mana. Great mana here. Not a ton of threats, but great interaction. Great removal. We are playing against another blue deck. It's going to be blue-black, which tends to be fairies. There's Freeze in Place. Everybody on the Freeze in Place today. Stunning my cookies. Some really fancy sleeves. Scribe both to the top off of the Freeze in Place. Alright, here's the Sweet Tooth Witch for my next threat, and that is the turn. 3 mana now, nothing from our opponent, drawn to a Greta. Just want to cash in damage again. This might be a little greedy, but I'm just going to do it. Let's go big. The aggro player in my heart sees a Tempting Apple in hand and is like, alright, let's just jam for as much damage as possible, so we kill them when they try to stabilize with the Tempting Apple. Alright, there's a stopgap. Which actually isn't horrible for me, because the Witch replaces the food that I sacked to put the counter on it anyway. I just get that food back and get that counter back onto the other creature. Does slow me down, though. Make sure that we're not hitting for 1,000,000 this turn. They're only down to 10 here. What is my opponent on about with this mana base? What is this? I mean, they certainly put in work to do that. You can't favorite every other land type. You'd have to manually go in and swap out every single basic. I mean, that is sending a message. So I can't kill my opponent here, but I could sack Gingerbread and the food to put them to 2, which is close, but not quite there. Let's just play the Baronati and sack the food here. Yeah, they really did it. Every single land is different. Mocking Sprite, sure. If they tap out, we can just Tempting Apple, and they are tapping out, so they are very dead. Would you like an apple, Mocking Sprite friend? It would. Oh, we get the lifelink because we have their fairy on our board? That's super gross. Alright, pretty simple victory there. Our opponent just had a pretty slow hand with some high mana value interaction against a relatively fast hand from us, so just a victory of a coin flip there for the most part. But it does send us to 5-2 as we head into round number 8. Here we are for round 8. Got that turn 1 Gingerbread, and we've got both our colors. Gotta draw into some mana here, but I believe in the heart of the cards. And we're on the draw, so that does help. Hit those lands. Gives us one more draw step to do it. Another black-green mirror match. Uh-oh. Greta is the worst draw in the deck when we have the other Greta in hand. Well, maybe not really, because they could have removal for the first one. It's definitely not a good draw, especially when we are looking for lands. We have missed on our first 2 draw steps. We'll see if we can't win the 3rd coin flip. Slightly weighted against us, but not a ton. Especially when we get to flip the coin 3 times. Come on, fingers crossed. Alright, there we go, right on time. Keep sending the Gingerbread in. And then I guess we do just slam down a Greta, because, like, what are they going to do? Destroy a mana value 3 or less creature, and then we play the other Greta? They're black-green, they don't have a counterspell here. Whoa, opponent is loaded with removal if they're going to candy grapple a Gingerbread. So they're going to candy grapple Gingerbread and then feed the Cauldron Greta, probably. That must be a removal dense hand if they're killing our 1/1. Ooh, they're going to stab wound the Greta. I like it, that's style points right there. Try to outrace us using a stab wound. Well, I've got some sad news for our opponent. And that's that we have a bear down. Do I do that instead of playing Vermin here? I think I still want to be mana efficient and play the Vermin for now, but that means taking some extra damage. I think it's fine, though. Four mana for our opponent. Just a 3/3 Fell Horseman is the play. Not dead after all. That's a sick, sick draw. Because now I can blow up the stab wound, attack with the Greta, and if they block, I just not dead after all. Which isn't, like, insane when I have a second Greta in my hand, but it's still really nice to make a 4/4 Greta, get a counter on the Vermin, and get another food token. Still a really good play for 1 mana. It's a Fairy Dream Thief. It's gonna Surveil to set up their draws. Puts a Bloodline in their grave so they can pick that up later if they get enough mana, but they have been missing land drops. They didn't play their 4th land until their turn 5. And then they didn't play a land that turn either. We can attack into the Fairy Dream Thief super freely. Like, if a rat token trades into it, that's like the worst case scenario, and that's not a bad case scenario. I guess I could sack a food to make my rat a 2/2 so they can't get any trades, but I'm fine with the trades. Uh-oh, it's their own combat trick, Titanic Growth. That's a big one. Yep, that just works. Vermin is very dead. So, Sweet Tooth Witch. I don't have a lot of mana here. So it might be worth it to just get a +1/+1 counter on something right now. While I have 1 extra mana lying in wait. Let's do it. Let's buff the witch, I guess. Like, yeah, I could use every single food to shoot my opponent for 2, but I'm going to be choked on mana from doing that a lot. I think being mana efficient and getting some value out of the food just ASAP is pretty good. Okay, what happens if I Tempting Apple the Beanstalk Worm here? They have a single blocker, they block the Beanstalk Worm, take 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Or 1 damage from killing them? If I Tempting Apple the Beanstalk Worm? Because I can hit them for 10 if I sack a food to buff my 1/1 rat. I feel like that's worth it, because then I have a Sweet Tooth Witch and a Tempting Apple just sitting on the board to kill them next turn. So put them to 1, and then just throw anything at them next turn. Use the Sweet Tooth Witch to throw food at them, use the Tempting Apple to make them lose 3. Anything like that should work here. All right, there is the concession. We are now 6-2 after what I believe was a 1-2 start. So a really good recovery, a really good rally to make it all the way to the final boss here. This is going to be the last game of Magic. Win or lose, the difference between a full 7-win run and just being so close to a trophy here. So we'll see how it pans out for us, but this is going to be the final boss, the final game, no matter what. Here we are now for the final battle. Our opponent is on the play and we don't do anything till turn 3, so we could get aggroed out, and a mountain is the last thing I want to see with a hand like this. But after some of the mulligans we've had here, we're definitely not mulliganing a hand with solid mana. A good creature and good removal from turn 3 onward. Alright, we're getting aggroed out by Red-White Celebration, one of the more aggressive archetypes in the format. So far they've curved out perfectly turn 1 into turn 2. If they do that turn 3 as well, I think we're incredibly unlikely to stabilize, especially with 2 Tempting Apples. Alright, they didn't have a 3-drop here, so that is very helpful. The Sweet Tooth Witch doesn't even get to block and trade with the Ratcatcher trainee because of the first strike during their turn. So it feels better to just play a Barrow Naughty or just feed that trainee to the Cauldron immediately. Don't hate feeding it to the Cauldron, getting a food token here. Just taking 1 a turn from the Spear Guard now. Double Apple is so awkward. Not at all what we want in this kind of matchup. But nothing turn 4. I mean, they had a scary explosive start, but they just ran out of gas real fast for now. Maybe it's all removal in there. They're going to torch the tower, our Sweet Tooth Witch or something. Coop it up. Anything like that. Yep, Grasp of Fate. So just a couple of creatures and a bunch of removal. We can certainly stabilize just by having a bunch of food tokens on the board. Alright, I was incredibly worried to start this game off, but things are starting to look okay for us. Obviously still at a pretty large life total disadvantage, but I think our deck hopefully has some bigger plays to draw into than theirs generally. Or just better value plays, like getting a creature plus a food, stuff like that. We stable here? They just have a 1-1 now? Okay. Starting to look stable here. Start poking them for 2 every turn, I guess. I am not spending a Curse of the Werefox on a 1-1. Especially a 1-1 that replaces itself when it dies. Well, show me that that combat trick here, I guess. Monstrous Rage or something? Archon's Glory? Okay, that's fine. That's a 1-for-1. Basically pretend they had another removal spell in hand. They discarded a card to make us discard a creature. Still don't think I'm eating the food with the number of ways we have to use them. These land draws are tremendously awkward. Hit the 5th green source before the 2nd black. That is really disappointing. I think we have more black sources than green sources in this deck, too. We do. We have 9 swamps and 8 forests. Yikes. I'm still not cashing in this removal. I guess because we have food tokens, we can definitely keep attacking here, and we're winning the race. Because we're essentially at 19 if I eat all the food. Return Triumphant. Now the Ratcatcher trainee has a young hero roll on it, so it's a 2-1. First strike during their turn, but it attacks as a 3-2. Then it attacks as a 4-3. Feels like at this point I try to cash in the Curse of the Werefox, but I could see them responding with another combat trick for like +2/+2 here. That would not be very good for me. Don't really have a way to play around that. No, I don't. Just go for it. They could also have instant speed removal that work to torch the Tower of the Wicked Visitor before this resolves. Okay. It's definitely not a combat trick. Unless it's like Monstrous Rage, that wouldn't add enough toughness to save the rat catcher. I'm gonna start eating these food tokens now. Ooh, an Ash. That's very scary, especially if they have another permanent to play alongside it. They don't, so just 3 damage. Alright, significantly less scary than I was thinking. $12-12. There's the second swamp. Tempting Apple's a lot of damage, right? Take this, hit for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Not lethal yet, so I just play the Sewer Witch. Hold the mana up to eat a food. And then play a Tempting Apple for lethal next turn. Can't sack it when it's tapped, so that does resolve. They draw the card, they get their treasure. Stockpiling Celebrant. Don't think does enough for them here. Scry one at the top, one at the bottom, but we're hoping they don't even get another turn because of our Tempting Apple. I mean, even though these are legendary, I can technically cast both and then just not sack either of them. We want to steal 2 of their blockers. I think I just don't block here, so I make sure I get to keep all my creatures. They have the +2/+2 lifelink trick. That's still gonna save them from dying on the crackback. But then I don't, like, lose a creature in addition here. Alright. That's kind of rough. So I don't think we can... Actually, I mean, 13 life. Maybe we do still kill them. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14? Jesus Christ, okay. Tempting Apple's a little bit nuts. It's like a caramel apple with a bunch of nuts on the outside. Lose 3. That is the one we need. And there you have it. All right. Well, that was really not how I was expecting that game to go. I was like, well, the one flaw with this hand is that we're not doing anything until turn 3 on the draw, which can be pretty slow against more aggressive decks. Our opponent went 1-drop haste creature into 2-drop first striker for a really scary start. But luckily for us, they drew pretty poorly and just did not have immediate follow-ups to those 2 creatures for quite some time. It was just like those 2 creatures, some removal spells and combat tricks. Took them quite a bit to draw into another threat, and that just gave us the time to start dropping down all of our nonsense we had in hand and eventually get there with the Tempting Apple. So pretty lucky stuff for that final round. Pretty lucky win streak there after the first 2 losses, getting the 6 wins in a row that we needed to still crack a 7-win run out of this draft. But I'll certainly take it. Nice little way to peek back into the Wilds of Eldraine format here with a 7-2 green-black food deck. Thought this deck was actually generally pretty mediocre for what this archetype is capable of. We didn't get any of the really good top end like the Hamlet Gluttons and stuff, and that kind of made the Knight of the Sweet's Revenge's mana abilities pretty redundant, but still wanted to try it out maybe for the +X to everybody. Still never really did anything. I don't think I'm ever going to draft this card again, but we tried it now. We tried it. I don't think this was the super perfect deck for it. It had the food production that you need to get some work done with it, but I think you also want more top end so you actually get some value from all the mana ramp it does. So, yeah, not a great showing for the Knight of the Sweet's Revenge, but everything else in the deck, the basic stuff, the Gretas for sure. The Sweet Tooth Witches, they showed up frequently and were always great. The Sewer Witch was awesome. The Vermin was great. The Scavenger. All the bread and butter, commons and uncommons that we built the deck with. Just a really solid archetype. Even if it's a more average, more mediocre build, it can get some great runs like we did today at 7-2, getting the full 950 gems and 2 packs out of this event. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching this video. If you're interested in seeing some more videos, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check me at the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.